Please. Just make it quick, she whispered. The next 5 seconds changed her forever. Lily walked briskly through the empty streets, the cool night air brushing against her skin. It was well past midnight, and the only sound was the echo of her footsteps on the pavement. She had just finished her shift at the small diner, a job that never seemed to end on time. The quiet of the night should have been comforting, but tonight it only felt isolating. The streetlights flickered above her, casting long shadows across the road. She pulled her jacket tight around her shoulders, wishing she didn't have to walk home alone. Her phone had died earlier in the evening, and there were no taxis in sight. The only thing she could rely on now was her own 2 feet. As she turned the corner onto a dimly lit alley, the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She couldn't explain why, but something felt wrong. It was that feeling you get when you know you're being watched. She glanced over her shoulder, but the street behind her was empty, nothing but the faint glow of a far-off streetlight. Still, the unease didn't go away. She picked up her pace, hoping to shake off the sense of dread creeping over her. But then, she heard it. Footsteps, quick and heavy, matching her pace, but a little too close. Her heart skipped a beat. Lily turned another corner, her shoes clicking on the wet pavement. She glanced back again, this time more urgently, but saw no one. She was being paranoid. Probably just someone out for a late walk, right? Still, the thudding of her heartbeat drowned out any other sounds. The footsteps grew louder, closer now, until they were almost right behind her. She couldn't help it. Her breath hitched in her chest. She looked over her shoulder, and that's when she saw him. A man dressed in dark clothes, his face hidden in the shadows. But he was walking fast, almost too fast. A chill ran down her spine as she quickened her pace, her heart hammering in her chest. She needed to get to the main road, to where there were people, where she could be safe. Her shoes slipped slightly on the slick sidewalk as she picked up her pace even more. The man's footsteps were right behind her now, just inches away. She felt his presence, the weight of his approach closing in. Just as she was about to round the corner and hopefully escape, the man's hand shot out, grabbing her arm with a force that took her breath away. Panic flooded her body. Her heart raced. Breath. She twisted in his grip, trying to free herself, but his hold was strong, unyielding. Her mind screamed for help, but the street was silent, the darkness swallowing every sound. "Let go of me," she shouted, but her voice trembled, barely audible against the cold night. He didn't answer. Dance. Instead, he yanked her further into the alley, his grip tightening. Lily's mind raced, her body screaming for her to fight back, to escape. But she was trapped. She couldn't think straight, couldn't breathe. All she could feel was the roughness of his hand and the fear bubbling up inside her. The alley was too quiet, too empty. Her heart pounded in her chest and she felt like she was suffocating. "Please, just make it quick," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Breaths. She didn't know where the words came from. It was as though her mind had shut down and the words had come out before she could stop them.
It was a plea, but it was also a surrender.
She wasn't sure if she was asking him to hurt her quickly, or if she was just begging for the whole nightmare to end.
The seconds felt like hours as the man held her firmly, not saying a word. In that moment, everything seemed to freeze. Time, the world around her, even her own thoughts. Brash. She was trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape from. But just when she thought her worst fears were about to become reality, something unexpected happened. A sharp voice broke through the silence, a command that cut through the tension in the air like a knife. "Let her go!" The man's grip faltered, and for a brief second Lily thought she might be dreaming. She turned her head toward the voice, her heart still racing, her mind still reeling. The figure of a man stood in the shadows, his silhouette tall and strong, his posture calm but assertive. "Who the hell are you?" the man holding Lily growled. But there was hesitation in his voice, uncertainty. The stranger didn't flinch. "Let her go," he repeated, stepping closer. His tone was calm, but it carried an authority that made Lily's attacker hesitate. For a long moment, no one moved. The man's grip on Lily loosened slightly, just enough for her to breathe again. She stood frozen, still in shock, not knowing what to do. The stranger's eyes locked on her, a silent assurance passing between them. The next few seconds stretched on forever. It felt like everything in the world had come to a standstill. And then, with a sudden motion, the stranger stepped forward. Before she could react, the man holding her was shoved back, his grip completely releasing. The man who had been watching them moved swiftly, with practiced ease, his movements almost too fast to follow. Lily stood there, her body still trembling as the stranger forced the other man to the ground. "Run," the stranger said softly, his voice steady and commanding. It was not a suggestion. "Despair!" It was an order. Lily didn't need any more convincing. Her legs finally found the strength to move, and she ran. Out of the alley, out of the darkness, and into the streetlight's safety. Her mind was still reeling, but her body moved on instinct. She didn't stop until she reached the corner, until she could no longer hear the footsteps behind her. She turned back just once, her eyes searching for the stranger who had saved her, but he was already gone, vanished into the shadows. Breath. And in that moment, Lily knew that the next 5 seconds, those brief, horrifying moments when she thought she was going to die, would change her forever. Her life would never be the same again. But Lily didn't stop running until she reached the safety of the main street, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She barely noticed the cars speeding by or the distant hum of city life. Everything was a blur. Her mind was racing, her heart still thundering in her chest. The image of the man in the alley, the way his cold hand gripped her arm, kept playing over and over in her mind. But she felt the weight of what had just happened but wasn't sure how to process it. Had it all been real? Desk? Was it some kind of dream? Or had she somehow imagined the stranger who had come out of nowhere to save her? Brett. She didn't know. All she knew was that she was alive. Grasp. And that in itself felt like a miracle. She leaned against a lamppost, trying to catch her breath, wiping her forehead with the back of her hand. The night air, still cool and crisp, didn't seem to help her calm down. Everything felt off, as though the world around her was moving too quickly for her to keep up. A few minutes passed before she was able to gather herself enough to walk. Her hands were trembling, her legs unsteady. She wanted to find a taxi to get home as quickly as possible, but her phone was dead, and there weren't many taxis on this part of town at this time of night. Her only option was to keep walking, to keep moving forward, even though she wasn't sure how to move past what had just happened. It wasn't long before she heard footsteps behind her again, and her heart lurched in her chest. The fear was instant. Her mind went into overdrive, replaying the previous moments in the alley. Was it him again? The man who had attacked her? Or was it someone else? She dared not look behind her. The thought of seeing another stranger approaching, someone who might mean her harm, made her blood run cold. But then, to her surprise, she heard a familiar voice. "Hey, are you okay?" She froze. The voice was calm, steady, but there was something comforting about it. She turned slowly, hesitant but curious. It was the stranger, the man who had saved her. Lily's mouth went dry as she looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. He was tall, taller than most men, and wore dark clothes. Nothing flashy, but well-fitted. His face was clean-shaven, with a strong jawline and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of many unspoken stories. There was an intensity in his gaze, but it wasn't a threatening one. It was the look of someone who had seen much in life, someone who had lived through things that most people never would. I'm fine, Lily managed to say, her voice shaky. She wasn't sure if she was convincing him or herself. The man took a step closer, his expression softening. You don't look fine.
You're shaking, Lily nodded, but couldn't find the words to explain the wave of emotions crashing over her.
What could she say? That she had almost been attacked? That she thought she was going to die tonight? That she didn't know how to make sense of any of it? She didn't even know where to begin. The stranger seemed to understand the silence between them, and instead of pushing her to talk, he just stood there, waiting. He didn't seem like he was in a hurry, or that he wanted anything from her. He was just break. There. For the first time since the incident, Lily felt like she could breathe again, even if only for a moment. You're not alone, he said, breaking the quiet. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. His words were simple, but they carried weight. She looked at him, unsure of how to react. Was this just the kind of thing people said when they felt pity for someone? Or was there more to it?
I don't even know your name, she said softly, finally breaking the silence.
He smiled slightly, the first real expression she'd seen from him since he intervened earlier.
Aaron,
she repeated, trying to remember the name. Thank you for what you did.
Don't thank me, Aaron interrupted gently. I was just in the right place at the right time. But Lily couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just a coincidence.
The way he had appeared out of nowhere, the calmness with which he handled the situation. It didn't seem like mere luck. Something about him felt different from anyone she had ever met.
I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't shown up, she admitted, her voice quieter now. I don't know how to explain what happened back there.
Aaron nodded, his expression still serious. I understand.
Breath. I've seen a lot of bad things in my life. I can tell when someone's in trouble.
Lily felt a knot form in her stomach. He didn't just mean he'd seen some bad things in the world. He was speaking from experience. She could tell by the way he said it, as though the weight of his past had shaped the person he was today. It was as if the world had left a mark on him, one that wasn't easy to forget. I'm not used to this, Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm not used to people helping me like this, but I don't even know how to thank you.
You don't need to thank me, Aaron replied. Just take care of yourself.
That's enough. His voice was calm, but there was something reassuring about it. For the first time in what felt like hours, Lily allowed herself to relax, if only a little. She hadn't expected to feel safe again so soon, but Aaron's presence was doing just that.
Are you sure you're all right? Aaron asked after a moment, his concern still evident.
Lily nodded slowly. I think so. I don't know how to move on from this. I don't know how to forget what happened. I'm not sure you should forget, Aaron said quietly. But you don't have to go through it alone. Not if you don't want to. For a long moment, Lily stood there, unsure of what to say next. She wasn't used to people offering their help without asking for something in return. And she definitely wasn't used to opening up to strangers. But there was something about Aaron that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could trust him. Breaths. She didn't know why, but she felt like she could.
"Thank you," she said again, her voice softer now.
"I'll keep that in mind." Aaron nodded and then took a small step back. "I'll walk with you until you're safe."
If you're okay with that.
Lily was hesitant for a moment, but the idea of walking home alone after what had happened seemed almost impossible. The streets were quieter now. The shadows felt deeper.
She didn't want to be alone. She didn't want to face the night again without someone by her side. "All right," she said finally, her voice steadying. "I'd like that." And with that, the two of them began to walk together down the empty street, side by side, though Lily couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just changed forever. She had no idea where this would lead, but one thing was certain: she wasn't alone anymore. And that, for now, was enough. The next few days passed in a blur. Lily didn't know what had come over her. The fear from that night still lingered, but something else was slowly replacing it. Curiosity. Every time she thought about Aaron, a strange feeling washed over her. It wasn't just gratitude for saving her. There was something deeper, something she hadn't quite figured out yet. But one thing was clear: her life had changed in ways she didn't fully understand. After that night, Aaron didn't disappear. Breath. He didn't just leave her to deal with the aftermath on her own. He checked in on her the next day, and the day after that. It wasn't just a quick "Are you okay" message. It was something more. He called her. He stopped by her apartment with coffee, even though she hadn't asked for it. He offered his help without ever pushing. Breath. His presence was steady, calm, and, for reasons she couldn't explain, comforting. Lily had always been independent. She had learned to take care of herself from a young age, to trust no one but herself. The world wasn't a safe place, and she had learned that the hard way. But with Aaron, something inside her began to change. She wasn't sure if she was ready to let her guard down. But for the first time in a long while, she found herself questioning the walls she'd spent years building around herself. The first time she truly spoke to him, really spoke, was a few days after the incident. She had invited him to lunch, a simple meal at a nearby cafe, just to thank him properly. She had been nervous, unsure of what to say, but Aaron didn't make her feel like she needed to be perfect. He was just there, listening, offering gentle advice when she needed it. "How did you end up in that alley?" Aaron asked, his voice quiet, but his gaze fixed on her. He wasn't prying, but the question lingered in the air between them. He wasn't asking for any specific details, just trying to understand. Lily hesitated. Breaths. She wasn't sure she wanted to relive that moment, but she also knew she needed to.
For the first time, it wasn't just about what happened that night. It was about the fear she had been carrying for so long.
I don't really know, Lily admitted, looking down at her hands. It was just a typical night at the diner. I stayed later than usual. I guess I didn't think much about the walk home. Aaron didn't interrupt. He simply listened, giving her the space she needed. It was clear that he wasn't just trying to fill the silence with empty words. He understood the weight of her words.
I've always been careful, Lily continued, her voice soft.
Bray. I've always kept my head down, stayed out of trouble. But that night, it just felt different. Like I wasn't in control anymore. Like something was going to happen. Aaron nodded, his expression serious but understanding. You can't always control what happens around you. he said.
But you can control how you respond.
Lily thought about his words for a moment. It was true. She couldn't change the past.
But maybe, just maybe, she could learn to let go of the fear that had been holding her back. "That's what you did, right?" she asked, meeting his eyes. "You didn't just freeze. You stepped in. You did something."
I did what I had to, Aaron replied simply, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth.
"It's what I'm trained to do. But you did something too. You didn't give up." Lily couldn't help but smile at his words. It was hard to believe, but maybe he was right. She was still here. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as weak as she had once thought. The conversation shifted after that. They talked about everything and nothing. About their childhoods, about the world outside, about things that had nothing to do with that night. It was a slow, quiet process. But it felt good. It felt right. In the days that followed, Aaron continued to check in on her, but their relationship began to shift. It wasn't just about him being there as a protector anymore. It wasn't just about her being the person who needed help. They started to spend time together, doing ordinary things. They went for walks in the park, talked over coffee, and even watched a movie together one evening. At first, Lily was cautious. She wasn't used to being this open with someone, especially someone she barely knew. But Aaron had a way about him that made her feel safe, even when she didn't fully understand why. He never pushed her to talk about things she wasn't ready to. He didn't ask too many questions. He just let her be. The more they spent time together, the more Lily realized something. Aaron wasn't like anyone she had ever met. He was kind, but there was a depth to him, something that spoke of experience, of things he had seen and lived through. And somehow, that made him even more intriguing. One evening, as they sat on a bench near the edge of the park, watching the sunset, Aaron finally spoke again, this time about himself. And he had been quiet about his past, and Lily hadn't pushed him to share. But now, with the soft golden light of the evening casting shadows around them, he seemed ready. "I wasn't always like this," Aaron said, his voice low. "I used to be a soldier."
I've seen a lot of things I don't like thinking about.
"But it's part of who I am." Lily listened intently. Breaths. She could tell that he wasn't speaking lightly. He was opening up, sharing a part of himself that he didn't often reveal.
"Why did you leave?" she asked softly. Aaron was silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon.
"I didn't leave. I was discharged. I was hurt. Mentally, more than physically. And I couldn't go back to that life."
"I couldn't keep living the way I had been." Lily nodded, understanding more than she expected to.
She knew what it was like to be trapped by something you couldn't shake, something that stayed with you no matter how hard you tried to forget it. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked after a pause. "No," Aaron said, his voice firm. "I did what I had to do."
I helped people in the way I knew how, but now I'm here. I am trying to do something.
But trying to find peace in a way that makes sense for me. Lily's heart softened at his words. There was so much she didn't understand, so much about Aaron's past that she couldn't even begin to grasp. But in that moment, it didn't matter. What mattered was the present, the way they were connecting now. She reached out and placed her hand on his, not saying anything, but feeling the weight of the moment. They didn't need words to understand each other. In that quiet, shared moment, Lily felt something new, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time.
I'm glad you're here, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Aaron turned his hand, gently squeezing hers.
Me, too. For the first time in days, Lily felt a sense of calm wash over her. She wasn't sure what the future would bring, but she wasn't afraid anymore.
And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a future worth looking forward to.
As the days went by, Lily began to notice something she hadn't expected.
Breath. She started to feel lighter. It wasn't that the fear from that night had completely disappeared. It hadn't, but she was beginning to let go of some of the weight she had carried for so long. Aaron had become a steady presence in her life, someone she could rely on without feeling like she was burdening him. He didn't make her feel weak, and that was a rare gift. They spent more time together, and slowly the awkwardness that had existed at the beginning of their relationship started to fade. Their conversations became easier, more natural. They would meet for coffee, sometimes at the same cafe where they'd first talked. Aaron never pushed her to talk about things she wasn't ready for, but sometimes in quiet moments, they would share pieces of their pasts. It was never forced. It just happened, little by little. One evening as they sat together in the park, the sun dipping below the horizon, Aaron looked over at her with a thoughtful expression. "Lily," he began, his voice calm and steady, "you know I've been thinking." Lily turned to face him, her curiosity. "About what?" He paused for a moment, as though choosing his words carefully. "About you."
About how you've handled everything. You're stronger than you think.
But there was a hint of disbelief in her expression. Stronger. "I feel like I'm still trying to figure it all out." Aaron's gaze softened. "We all are."
But the way you've been dealing with everything, you don't give up.
Breath. "You keep going."
Lily felt a warmth spread through her at his words. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear something like that.
It was as if, for the first time in a long time, she was starting to see herself in a different light. Maybe she wasn't just a survivor. Maybe she was more than that. "I don't know about that," Lily said, her voice quieter now.
I've always thought that the world is just too unpredictable, that no matter how hard you try, things can change in an instant. Aaron nodded, understanding what she meant.
Psst. I get it. I've seen it too.
But you can't control everything. You can only control how you react.
But peace don't emerge. The body fell off. What the hell happened downtown? Had jobs of one identified Frost without dangers.
But maybe Aaron was right. Maybe the key wasn't to control everything.
Maybe it was to learn how to adapt, how to move forward even when life threw unexpected challenges her way.
I'm not sure I can change the way I think, Lily admitted, her voice laced with uncertainty.
But I've been this way for so long. I don't think it's about changing who you are, Aaron said gently. It's about understanding yourself. Knowing your limits, your fears, and learning how to face them. You've been doing that already, Lily. You just don't always see it. Lily felt a lump form in her throat. Grace, she had spent years trying to protect herself, trying to keep everything under control. But Aaron was right. She had been facing her fears, even when it didn't feel like it. The fact that she was sitting here now, having this conversation, was proof of that. Maybe she didn't need to be so afraid of what was ahead. The next few days were filled with more moments of reflection. Lily found herself thinking about her life, her past, and the person she wanted to be moving forward. It wasn't easy. Old habits died hard, and there were times when the fear crept back in, but each time it did, she found herself turning to Aaron, who was always there, offering her calm reassurance. They continued to spend time together, slowly becoming more than just two people thrown together by chance. There was something unspoken between them, a connection that felt deeper than anything Lily had experienced before. It wasn't just about the safety he had given her that night. It was about the way he made her feel like she wasn't alone. He didn't make her feel weak, even when she had moments of doubt. He made her feel seen, heard, and understood. One evening, as they walked through the city, the streets quieter than usual, Lily found herself opening up more than she ever had before. They had been talking about their pasts, about the things they had been through, and Lily realized that for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid to share her story. "I've always been so afraid," Lily said quietly, looking up at the stars. "Afraid of what people would think. Afraid of letting anyone in." Aaron's gaze was soft as he listened.
"Why?" Lily paused, unsure of how to answer.
"I don't know. I guess it's because if I let people in, they might see the parts of me that I don't like. The parts that are broken."
You're not broken, Aaron said firmly.
"You're human. We all have parts of ourselves that we don't like."
But that doesn't mean we're broken. It means we're real."
Lily felt a wave of emotion rise in her chest. It was as if Aaron's words had unlocked something inside her, something she had been holding back for so long. But she had always thought that being strong meant never showing weakness, never letting anyone see her vulnerabilities. But maybe strength wasn't about hiding those parts of herself. Maybe it was about accepting them.
"Do you ever think you'll let anyone in?"
Aaron asked, his voice low but gentle.
Lily looked at him, her heart beating faster. She didn't have an answer right away. But in that moment, she realized that maybe she was starting to let go of the walls she had built around herself. Maybe she wasn't as afraid of what might happen if she allowed herself to be vulnerable. "I don't know," she said slowly. "But maybe I'm ready to try."
Aaron smiled, and for the first time Lily didn't feel like she was taking a risk.
She felt like she was making a choice to be open, to face the future without letting fear control her. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was something she was willing to try. In the days that followed, Lily found herself growing in ways she hadn't expected. She started to look at the world around her differently. Instead of seeing it as a place full of danger and uncertainty, she began to see it as a place full of possibilities. It wasn't about pretending the world was perfect. It was about accepting that life would always have its challenges and learning to face them with strength. And with Aaron by her side, she felt ready to take on whatever came next. He had become more than just someone who had saved her that night. He had become someone who believed in her, someone who saw her for who she truly was.
They spent more time together, but the connection they shared went beyond just the time they spent.
It was in the way they could sit in silence and feel comfortable, in the way they could talk about anything without judgment. They had built something strong, something real. And for Lily, that was all she had ever wanted. Someone to be there. Someone who understood.
Lily's life had changed in ways she couldn't have imagined just a few weeks ago.
Phew. The fear, the uncertainty. It was still there sometimes, lingering in the back of her mind. But she wasn't as afraid of it anymore. She was learning how to move through life differently, one step at a time.
It hadn't been an easy journey, but it had been worth it.
And much of that change had come from the quiet, steady presence of Aaron. One evening, as they sat on the porch of her apartment, watching the sun set behind the skyline, Lily felt a sense of peace that she hadn't known for a long time. The warmth of the day was fading, and the cool evening breeze brought a sense of calm. Aaron sat next to her, the two of them enjoying the silence between them. It was a rare kind of quiet, one that didn't feel heavy or awkward, but comfortable, natural.
"I've been thinking," Lily said softly, breaking the silence. She hadn't meant to say anything at first, but the words came out before she could stop them. Psst. Aaron turned his head toward her, his eyes soft and attentive.
"About what? About us,"
she said quietly, her fingers tracing the edge of her coffee cup.
"About everything that's happened." Aaron didn't say anything right away. He just let her speak, letting her take her time.
He knew she didn't always have the right words for how she was feeling, but he understood. He understood more than she realized.
"I never thought I'd feel this way," Lily continued, her voice soft but steady.
I've spent so much of my life being afraid. Afraid of what might happen. Afraid of who I could become if I let myself feel anything.
"But since you've been here, I've started to see that maybe there's more to life than fear."
Aaron nodded, his gaze never leaving her. He wasn't sure what he had expected her to say, but this, it felt like a breakthrough. Lily was no longer just surviving.
She was living. Do you feel different too? Lily asked, her voice hesitant but sincere.
Perrin took a deep breath and looked out at the horizon, his eyes thoughtful.
"I do," he said after a pause.
Breaths. I've spent a lot of time being on my own, focusing on the past. But being with you, it's helped me remember what it's like to be present. To focus on the moment, instead of worrying about what's happened before or what's coming next. Lily looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in a way that wasn't clouded by fear or doubt. Perhaps she had seen him as a protector, as someone who had saved her, but now she saw something deeper. She saw a man who had faced his own battles, who had lived through things that would have broken someone else, but who was still here, still strong. It wasn't just his strength that had drawn her in. It was his ability to be vulnerable, to open up without pretending to have all the answers.
"I don't know what's going to happen next," Lily said softly, her eyes searching his.
"But I do know that I don't want to go through it alone." Aaron smiled, his eyes meeting hers.
"You don't have to," he said gently.
You don't have to face anything alone, not anymore. Lily felt a wave of emotion flood over her. She had spent so long keeping everyone at a distance, afraid of being hurt, afraid of being seen for who she really was.
But with Aaron, she didn't have to be afraid anymore. He had shown her what it meant to trust again, to open up without fear of judgment, placing her hand on his. The simple touch felt like the most natural thing in the world, a quiet promise that they would face whatever came next together.
"I'm not sure what I'm doing, but I know I want to do it with you," she said, her voice steady but filled with feeling.
Aaron's smile widened, and for a moment everything around them seemed to fade. There was no past, no future, just the two of them, sitting together in the present. It was enough. More than enough.
"Then we'll figure it out," Aaron said, "one step at a time." The words were simple, but they held so much meaning.
Together they would move forward, not knowing what the future held, but ready to face it side by side. And for the first time in a long time, Lily wasn't afraid of what might come next. She didn't need to have all the answers. She just needed to take that first step and trust that everything else would fall into place. In the days that followed, Lily and Aaron spent more time together, learning more about each other, about the things that had shaped their lives, and about the ways they could support each other moving forward. There were still moments of doubt, moments when the fear tried to creep back in, but they faced those moments together. And with every passing day, Lily felt herself becoming stronger, more confident in the person she was becoming. One afternoon, as they walked through the park hand in hand, Aaron turned to her with a serious expression. I've been thinking, he said, his voice calm but filled with intention.
Lily raised an eyebrow, curious. About what? You've been through a lot, Aaron began.
And I've seen the way you've grown, the way you've started to open up. But I think you deserve more than just surviving.
Bert.
You deserve to live fully, to experience everything life has to offer. Lily looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion.
I'm trying, she said quietly, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to let go of all the fear.
Aaron stopped walking and turned to face her. You don't have to let go of it all at once, he said.
But you don't have to let it control you either. Fear doesn't have to define who you are. It's just something that's a part of you, not something that owns you. Lily took a deep breath, feeling a sense of clarity that had eluded her for so long. Maybe she didn't need to be perfect. Maybe she didn't need to have everything figured out.
She just needed to be willing to take the next step, to keep moving forward. With Aaron by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next.
She wasn't alone anymore, and that made all the difference. She had found something she hadn't even realized she was looking for. A partner, a friend, someone who truly understood her and who believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Lily was excited to see where it would take her. And as she looked at Aaron, she realized that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together.